Welcome, I'm Alex Green-Higgy, and this is Our Heritage. And today I'm talking to someone who can offer interesting insight into the local history, and someone who's made a little history of their own, local author Joan Irvine. How are you, Joan?
Fine, thank you.
All right, welcome to the show. We've got quite a number of topics I'd like to cover with you today, so let's start at the beginning. You were born in the Bruce Peninsula to two doctors, I understand.
That's correct. Yeah, my mother was Dr. Norma Hopkinson, and people called her Dr. Norma, and my father was Dr. Mervyn Hopkinson, and people called him Dr. Hoppy.
We were discussing earlier that he had a somewhat unusual method of getting to his different engagements.
Well, he was quite a character. He was known as the Flying Doctor because he had an airplane, a Cessna, and occasionally he would fly from the Lions Head Airport to the Wyerton Airport, and then he had a little red motorcycle and he would go into the office on that. And he also collected sports cars, so he had a different sports car every year that he would sometimes drive from Lions Head to Wyerton.
Very nice.
Yes.
All right. You were growing up in the 50s and 60s in the area. What do you recall about the area in the 60s? Because I'm interested. My parents were very young children in the 1960s, and of course it's such a memorable era. What do you recall about it for this region at that time?
Well, it was kind of interesting. My mother was actually very involved with the school boards, and it was a time when they were shutting down all of the small country schools, and she was on the board at that time. And that was very controversial in the Bruce Peninsula. A lot of people were very upset about it, but then they started the busing, and they would bring children, all the way from up around Dyer's Bay and come all the way down to Lions Head. So Lions Head was the hub of education, and that's...
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so these were the last descendants of the old schoolhouses, like the one they recreate up at Grey Roots that were being closed down.
Yes, that's correct.
End of an era.
Mm-hmm.
My word. And so where what was the culture at that time? Because of course everyone thinks of the 60s as the age of counterculture. What do you recall in that regard?
Well, the Bruce Peninsula was more cut off. I often felt that it was like an island, and we used to laugh that it was maybe 2 years behind everyone else. So I remember that, say growing up in Lions Head, if you were to go on a date in high school, that maybe your first date you would come all the way down to Wyerton. They used to have a movie theater there, or the drive-in theater. That was really exciting, and Owen Sound it was also a theater. But then after that, people couldn't afford to always drive so far, and anyways, it was rather isolated, in those days. Yeah. My own counterculture actually happened when I left the Bruce Peninsula and sort of became a hippie around 1969. And
okay.
That would have been during my university years.
Of course. All right. And which university did you attend?
I went to McMaster University.
Ah, very good. Mm-hmm. Okay. And was in this state of isolation, 2 years behind. I like that. Of course, it's a little difficult to imagine for those of us who grew up in the age of the internet. But what a time to live in. The music. I was raised on the music of the 60s and 70s. Was it the Beatles and all the great classics? Were they a big phenomenon in this area?
They were. It was kind of funny because my father was really into classical music. So at first I was, into classical music, but then I couldn't help but get involved with the Beatles in particular. And that would have been the late 60s. So then I started to get involved with
Your evolution of your musical tastes and mine sounded very similar, actually. Actually, well, I won't comment on what it was like growing up with '90s music, but anyway, it's for the most part best forgotten. This last decade that we had. Anyway, and then so you attended McMaster and studied.
I studied sociology, and then I went to the School of Design as well, where I met my husband Steve, who's a potter and a photographer.
Quite so.
And I got involved with the arts, but then I also, following that, I took a degree in Montessori training. Okay. So when my husband and I moved up to this area, there were no Montessori schools in Owen Sound, but I happened to meet two women, Susan Milne and Cecile Moses, and they were looking at establishing a school, and I had the training. So together, we all sat together in a living room with a bunch of parents and put enough money together to start the Montessori school in Owen Sound.
And this was in?
That would have been 1974.
1974, okay. Mm-hmm. All right, and the Montessori school is, for those who don't know, where can that be found?
It's over towards Kelso Beach in that area, but
understood.
Yeah, it's moved to different locations throughout the years.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you were teaching there to begin with?
I taught there for a number of years, and yes, it was actually held at the Lutheran church upstairs in the old Sunday school.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Was a very large student body eventually, or did it grow a great deal?
It grew over the years, but I eventually left it after about 10 years and got into publishing and self-publishing, and then later on went to Teachers College and became a regular teacher.
Points that we'll cover in just a minute.
Okay.
Welcome. We're back with Joan Irvine. Hi, Joan. You were just in the process of telling me about your founding role in the Owen Sound Montessori School. Now, I went to the regular public school, and I don't know that I know much, and I don't know how many people do know. What is it that's different about a Montessori school? So, could you explain a little about that?
Well, it was founded by Maria Montessori to begin with, and so I had to take a one-year course, which was held at Victoria College in Toronto, Montessori training, and it's just as thorough as teachers training. The interesting thing was that we actually had to order Montessori materials from Holland. So when we got this group of parents together, each set of parents put in $50, and then we ordered all of the proper materials, and they're beautiful materials, and they're all in wooden boxes. So for instance, for learning math, you would have number rods, and for the bigger numbers you would have glass beads, so 10 glass beads for the number 10, and then a cube for 1,000, so that you can actually visualize numbers. And the other interesting thing about Montessori is that children learn at their own rate. And so that if you walked into a Montessori classroom, you would see some children doing this activity, another one doing that activity. And the teacher is like a facilitator where she moves around and helps either groups of children or individual children.
I see. And what do you think does a Montessori school do for kids who might have, what's the benefit for kids who might be struggling in the regular system?
Well, I think it's because they don't have to all go along at the same rate with the same material. So that if, say, for instance, you're having trouble with reading, the teacher could work with you individually and help you at your own level. And but the children who are ready to go ahead faster can go ahead at their own level. And so I think that's one of the advantages.
That's a very good one, I might add. And of course, then you, I gather you went on, after your time at the Montessori school, you went on to Keppel-Sarawak Elementary?
Yes. Well, I got into the publishing business.
Yes.
So I left Montessori and actually self-published 4 books. And then the 1 year I decided to go into publishing. It took a long time to get in, but about 3 years I entered the publishing world, and I had my first book come out the very same year that I went to Teachers College in Toronto. And my husband was great. He stayed at home with our 2 children, and so I was in Toronto during the week. I'd come home on the weekends, and I got my teaching degree at the age of 37 and came back to this area. I worked for 1 year at Holland Chatsworth, and then the next 22 years at Keppel-Sarawak School.
Teaching which?
Well, I taught almost all of the grades, actually, but I ended up at the very end teaching kindergarten.
Yeah. They're delightful. All right. And of course, as you mentioned, your publishing career, so that was the other great thing that, of course, is that you have quite, and we have a few of them here, so I'll bring up 1 or 2 of them to start with, a prodigious collection of children's craft books. So can, if I'll ask you to hold that one.
Probably this would be the most
yes. Okay, yes. And in fact, at first glance at it, I thought, wait a minute, this book looks kind of familiar. So I have a hunch that I probably had this one myself when I was a kid. This one was published in 1987, and this was the first or one of the first you have there.
It was the second one, but that was 1981.
Okay, and this is one of the self-published, correct?
And you can see from the inside that I did everything by hand, where I used calligraphy and my own drawings.
And beautifully done there, I might add. Yeah, that's and it's fascinating that. That subject, because I remember as a little kid at school, we had a few pop-up books, and I remember one of my favorite that I had when I was a little kid. Some of my favorites were pop-up books. So I think you seem to have found a very interesting niche there in crafts, because we certainly, when I was a kid, and this is in the early '90s, we could get very excited about those. So and they've. What do you think it is about the pop-ups in particular that might have made them so attractive?
Well, I think it's because people like making cards for each other, and so it's just adding another element of something that when you open up the card, there's this element of surprise. Something pops up at you.
Sure.
And I've often found certain personalities, they love to work with their hands, and my daughter's one of them. She helped me, just as a young child with all of these. But I've often met people who have told me that they followed absolutely every card in the book. They would make everything. And also teachers who would really enjoy working with pop-ups as something that they could do with the children.
It's to represent an interesting mental exercise for a young kid, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also good because it's following instructions, step 1, step 2, step 3. And so
Quite
it's a reading exercise along with making things.
Well, and apparently they made a very big splash, as you showed me earlier. I'll just grab one again. You've seen quite a lot of global circulation. So here's the same book I was holding a moment ago in, correct me if I'm wrong, Korean?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It's funny, the books keep coming out. So those came out, 2 of them in Korea in 2011. Also, my books have done well in Japan. I have 2 in Japanese.
And the home of origami. So
yes.
I can sort of see the attraction. All right, that is quite remarkable. And you say even in the self-publishing days you actually achieved quite a modicum of success.
Yeah, I self-published 5,000 books, and in 1981 I was actually asked to have dinner with the Queen during, I guess it would be 82, during the signing of the Constitution.
So Prime Minister Trudeau and the whole gang was there, as it were. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So, well, what can I say but congratulations. So, and there is a number of other languages that they've come out in. Dutch, I believe, was among them.
Yes, the pink one is the Dutch.
Yeah. So I like how in Dutch pop-ups is still pop-ups. I get kind of a kick out of that. And it's become something of a family tradition as well. So I'm going to dive back down here again and note that for any librarians in the area or school teachers, take note. Joan's daughter has also entered the publishing ring. So, and
her name's Ellie Mackay.
Yep.
And she lives in Owen Sound, and she's done extremely well. This is her first published children's book that she wrote and illustrated, but she has 2 more coming out in the
Excellent. And convey our congratulations, I'm sure. All right. We are going to take a quick break and be back to wrap up with Joan Irvine. Thanks very much. Back. So, Joan, you have lived through some of the most memorable periods of 20th century history, and if I may say, have had a very distinguished history in your own right. And published author, teacher at the first Montessori school in the area, and an educator all around. So my hats off to you. I would be interested in knowing, remembering, when you were at school, when you were teaching, up till recent times, and you retired fairly recently, I seem to remember.
2 years ago.
Yes. How
has learning changed for the students in particular? Do they learn differently?
And have they learned differently over time?
Well, the Montessori learning, I explained that to you. It was interesting when I first went into teaching. It was almost activity-centered learning, where I don't know if you remember those days of where there would be a theme and then children would do all of their subjects around a theme.
Like the Magic School Bus kind of approach. Yes, we had that when I was very young. Yes.
Yeah. And then I think there was a swing towards balanced literacy, so kind of balancing everything. And and then, what I've been really interested in is just teaching reading, because in my last years of teaching, I was actually teaching the beginning of reading. And that, to me, is one of the most exciting things of all, to see children finally figure it out. And my granddaughter is actually at that stage right now where she's 5, and I sit down with her, and you can just see like a light bulb going on when you can just sound out things and then suddenly they fit together into a word. Yeah.
That must be, I can dimly remember it happening to me, and it is as an exhilarating experience, but at least as much so to see it happening, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you find, do you get more of one kind of learning style now than you used to get? Like, we used to talk about the 3 learning styles: tactile, visual, and so on. Is there more of one than another then versus now?
I don't know about that, but I was always interested in the creative thinkers when I was teaching, because there were always some students that thought out of the box or very differently from other students, and they didn't necessarily fit all the time with the system, but they often did quite well later on because they were self-motivated and had a passion, and I think those were my favorite students actually, because they were gifted, but in a different way. So I always tried to help those students along.
I'm sure they are much obliged to you. That's marvelous. And what about the county at large? Because you spoke of it, the region as being, Bruce Peninsula, Grey County, as being relatively isolated to begin with. Do you find that's changed a great deal?
Yes, I think it's changed. I've seen a big change over the years. I'm actually involved right now with Colleen Purdon, who's the city councillor.
Yes.
And we've been working on something called Welcoming Communities. We've held 2 forums, and we're actually looking at how we can welcome newcomers to the area and retain newcomers in the area. And that would be looking at both new immigrants or young people, but what is it that would attract people to this area and what would retain them?
And what is your answer to that question?
Well, I think one of the keys is just being welcoming, and how we can show others that we want people to come to this area. And it's such a marvelous area. We have so much to offer. So, and the key thing is to keep people here.
You and we both, of course, have spent time in Heritage. You volunteer at Grey Roots Museum Archives. I used to work there, and I'm in the heritage business generally. Do you think that the stories of Grey County's heritage are an important part of that process?
Oh, for sure. And I work in the schoolhouse in the summers, just one day a week. And when people come in, especially those who have gone to the one-room schools, and their eyes light up, and it brings back such memories for them, and then they can relate those things to their grandchildren that are often with them. But
right.
I think it's tremendously important.
Yeah, and of course you were there for the end of the last days of those schoolhouses when they started the busing process.
Yes,
so
that's right.
You can speak to that. And I think not everyone on a level that not everyone could, perhaps.
Yes, my mother was on the school board when they closed down a lot of the small schools on the Bruce Peninsula and started busing children, and there was a lot of sadness. But it was happening all over Ontario at the time.
Did you would have attended one of those schools?
I attended a 2-room school, so I went from grades 1 to 4 in one room with the same teacher, and grades 5 to 8 with another 2 teachers. But yeah.
So that was the beginning of your experiences with learning.
That's right.
All right, fantastic. So we can look you up for more at Grey Roots in the summer, hopefully.
Yes.
And I'll hopefully see you up there. And your books are in stores? Or
they're actually Amazon.ca.
Okay.
And they're now published by Dover, 3 of them. So.
All right. So we'll, for any teachers watching, may look like you might be able to make use of those. That's where you want to look. All right. So that is a fantastic perspective on. I'm just particularly interested in your remembrances of the history of education in the area and how that's evolved. I've had my education, which is a tiny slice of that, but this it's a remarkable evolution, and it's a marvelous story all around. Fantastic books. I know young kids who would get a great kick out of those, and a great perspective on the changes in the county. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. So I'll say good luck with your subsequent publications. If you've got some, and to the same to your daughter as well.
Okay.
All right, and good luck with your grandkids on their reading.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.